part of this tournament. He looks at the player list. He's like, man, did he tell you Kid is not here? He's like, nah, he's a little less ZVZ for me. Anyway, let's get it on for our third day here at the DreamHack Masters Season Finals Fall. In the top right side, we're looking at the main base of, without a doubt, one of the top favorites to win it all this time, our Korean Zerg player, Dark.
And down here in the bottom left-hand side of the map, we have our blue Protoss player, the champion of the C region right now. He is Probe.
I think it'd be really hype if Probe can win a map.
It would.
I want to stand up for him, by the way. Ben said, like, oh, I don't know how many times it's been that he's been here quite a few times, but I don't know when the last time is that he ever won a map. It's actually only Probe's third time, which is like decent, but it's not like he's been here 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
Once he was the runner-up in the DreamHack Masters Summer 2020 to Risky. Risky, our good old UK lad who's currently not really participating anymore. And if you guys wonder, how the hell did Risky beat Probe in the Oceania qualifier? He's got a passport from New Zealand, I believe, or it's Australia. I think it's a New Zealand passport.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely been an interesting region to follow, and we do already see a Gate Forge open up over here. So we're definitely going to be seeing some shenanigans coming out soon. Interesting to note that Dark already saw the Probe moving for the scout, and he already took the other natural base location. Probe is going to scout that out and then move back to the main base.
Yeah, this is actually going to be a little bit weird now, because with Probe's opening, that's honestly not a very economic opening. I do kind of feel like you need to get something done, because he still hasn't dropped a Nexus yet, so we are really going to get some cannons going. And if Probe is ever going to win a game against Dark, this may very well be the right way to do it. The other time that Probe missed out on the season finals, by the way, he finished 5th. So it's kind of funny how a guy went first, second, and 5th. But that really kind of goes to show that Oceania, even if it doesn't have the best players in the world, it's a very fun region with a lot of upsets. And so far, if you're speaking of upsets, these are the kind of builds that can really cause one.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll talk a bit more about Probe's runs a little bit later. He is going to throw up that cannon on the high ground to try and at least slow down the spine crawlers and be able to pick away at that pylon. I think there is still an angle that the spine crawlers could hit away at the pylon if they really just want to depower it, or even prevent the Probe from making its way back up the ramp. But the way that you usually want to do this, as we do see, it's going to be the robotics facility option over here, is that you want to get out Immortals and shield batteries.
Okay, this is actually kind of crazy, because Dark is going to defend this with Lings and Banes by the looks of it, and a couple of spine crawlers. Now, if Probe can pick up on this, what you want to do is really not underdo it when it comes to cannons. The more cannons and batteries you have, the merrier. And this is very risky, I actually think, what Dark is doing. Dark is going to try to get one of these cannons immediately, and he will succeed in doing so. That's actually pretty big, being able to pick up the high ground cannon immediately. It's such a shame there was no battery to keep that cannon alive a little bit longer.
Yeah, battery's just a little bit too slow to actually help out with that. And this is going to be really, really tough now here for Probe, because he loses the high ground pylon.
Why did he not heal?
I think he doesn't want to waste... He knows that that pylon's going to go die anyways, right?
Yeah, but at least I feel like if you have 2 batteries there, potentially a 3rd battery, I guess that one would have been out of range. Because now this high ground battery is not doing anything.
Yeah, it's the most that it's really doing is providing some vision, and I guess distracting one of the spine crawlers for a little bit. Ooh, spine crawler trying to burrow in range of the cannon as his Lings try to make their way down, try to go for a surround. We do have the Banelings coming on in. They spot the pylon that's powering almost everything, but it survives. The Lings are going to be able to finish it off. The Immortals still should pop out, maybe. Oh
my
no.
Goodness.
That looks like it's going to maybe be a total shutdown on this push. It was a good attempt there from Probe, but few things just barely not quite working out there.
Nope, and obviously he didn't know that there were Banelings either. If you do know there are Banelings, then you could have either spaced out your buildings a bit more or just build more buildings in the first place, because Dark really puts himself on a timer when this is his defense and he doesn't go for mass queens, roaches and ravagers. Instead you go for Lings and Banes. You put yourself in a position where, alright, you most of the time have one shot, one opportunity. If that's good enough to kill everything, you win the game. If that fails, at that point it's a Protoss sweet dream where you can just fly around with a Prism, an Immortal, and get more cannons and batteries. So really kind of a shame that the game ended the way it did, because I think Probe will look at this like, damn it, that was very playable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the best cannon rushers in the world, when you consult with them, like Print Def or Grim Reaper, and a lot of the people who have basically dedicated their entire StarCraft quote-unquote careers to cannon rushing, will say, like, yeah, the Baneling defense is actually like the easier of the 2 types of defenses that you typically see to deal with. So it is a little bit rough there, but Probe, he shoots a shot there in game number 1. We'll see what his plan is going to be in game number 2, because this kind of wall off and everything, it can definitely work out if you can get that stuff situated, especially if you can keep that high ground cannon alive and buy a bit more time. I was also kind of interested by like the fact that he was focus firing down the queen. He doesn't end up getting that queen with the cannon on the high ground.
Would have been better to maybe get some guaranteed kills on the Zerglings. Here the Banelings come in. The Banelings splashed obviously over the battery and the pylon at the same time, which is obviously a bit painful. There wasn't a lot of energy on the battery on the low ground, but I think a little bit to potentially keep that pylon alive for just a little bit longer, and sometimes that can make the difference, because then your Immortal comes out, it has a barrier, gets a couple shots off, maybe some of these additional static defense buildings can finish up. Oh well, I mean, it honestly may have been a very short game, but these kinds of calls are very hit or miss. There's actually a small chance that something like that goes incredibly well for Probe.
Absolutely. And I mean, kudos to Probe if you can make something happen over here, even if it is with one of those kind of cannon rush builds that are not always look super fondly on by Zerg players and everything. For those who don't know, Probe, a master of many talents. Not only is he the Wings of Liberty speedrun world champion, but he's also studying and actually pursuing a master's degree in mechatronics, and he's also working right now. He's like works 3 days a week and spends time in school and is also still the world champion for Australia and is also the speedrun world champion for StarCraft Wings of Liberty. Like, it's actually pretty insane how diverse his skill set is.
The world champion for Australia. I love that.
The world champ, yes, sir.
Going full American over here. I see how it is. In the top left side of Lightshade for game 2 of our opening best of 3 of our 3rd day. We're looking at the main base of the world champion from Australia. It is Probe. For Australia.
And down over here in the bottom right-hand side of the map, we have our red Zerg player. You know him as the Korean champion. He is Dark.
The world champion for Korea.
The world champion for, I mean, that one doesn't even sound that wrong.
No, because he technically has been a world champion.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah, it's I mean, it's definitely going to be a tough match, and I'm actually really curious if Dark was going to do any kind of little adjustments over here to just be like, well, look, I know you're probably going to cheese me, so like, let's make this a clean 2-0.
We didn't really talk about that, but imagine if Dark would have just taken his natural, then there is a chance that he's actually forced to cancel his natural hatch, then send that drone out towards where he later on built that hatchery at 12 o'clock. But that obviously would mean that his second queen is a bit later, that would mean those links come out a little bit later, and his economy would have been slower too. So that really did help out Dark, and that obviously did not work out in favor of Probe.
Yeah, bit unfortunate there for Probe, as that usually when you're going for the counter rush, you would really want to be able to get a cancel, and then it also turns into a full-on contain, right? Your opponent has to bust out. They can't come in with the lings from the other side, or even threaten a counterattack. And if they can't threaten a counterattack, you don't have to worry about, for example, completing your wall in, or, you know, potentially there's some extra corners and stuff you can cut.
Now, I do think that if Dark wouldn't have gone for the cannons and batteries there, but he would have gone immediately for the wall on the other side of the map, there is a chance that that would have been very dicey for Probe too, because I don't think he had a single cannon there. And
it's one of the maps where you can wall off a little bit faster, so you can try to get something up, and you can wall off with like the gate core and everything. So there's a chance he may have been able to figure it out if he saw like there's no lings. That's maybe a red flag, but yeah, I agree. It could have definitely been dicey. But this game, there's no Forge or anything coming out over here for Probe. He's going to play it a little bit more standard. And well, I do want to bring it back to like last season for the season finals and everything. Probe did have a bit of a rough run there, but I think one of the things that's worth noting is that last season, he actually, and I remember you guys were watching it, it wasn't that he was necessarily in good positions, but he actually had some like promising looking openings and stuff that could have maybe worked out, but he clearly like nerves and a lot of other things started working against him. So I really am just hoping he can get the clean execution for whatever plan he has right here.
I actually think that Probe's late game in PvZ is quite solid. Like, I feel like he's quite comfortable with the big Protoss armies, where even if he needs to use multiple spellcasters and maybe even rely on some late game sentry micro, he's still capable of doing this. This is not a pretty start, as a couple of Zerglings casually run into the natural. They already grabbed 2 probes. This is an amount of damage that is not supposed to happen.
Yeah, you can already see Probe is actually just smiling, kind of thinking like, yeah, that's really not supposed to happen. He already kind of knows. Not the greatest spot. I'll see if maybe you can clean up this last sling, but also if that Adept can maybe get something done. But it's going to be pretty hard against a player like Dark.
Yep. Obviously, losing 2 probes in this phase in the game is a very big deal, because those 2 probes, they represent 5-6% of your economy, which is a lot more than it would be if you have 60 workers, you lose 2 workers. Yeah, it stinks because you do want to go maybe up to 75 or 80, but at that point it's not a very big deal. In this phase, it really something is that you feel in your build order for the next 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah. In the meanwhile, Dark is just going to be doing his good old drone powering up. I think he got a handful more lings. He's going to get up 8 or so more, gets up the Evo chamber to get started on those upgrades, but he's going to scout out this Void Ray. And that should already kind of give him some better ideas of potentially what Probe might start planning around, especially if you consider, like you were saying, Probe likes to play a lot of those late game styles and everything. The hot topic of the month, or I want to say the year so far, has basically been a lot of the big Stargate plays. So interested to see if he's going to go into that or if the extra gateways are going to be added on. Well, it's going to be another Stargate.
Yeah, Dark is doing something that some of the European Zergs like to do as well, and I feel like we've seen Rogue do it more than once, where they're going to fire up a very quick +1 melee. But this is actually a little bit risky what Dark is doing, because now he's going to put himself in a spot where he basically wants to make a nice spell of Zerglings, maybe 28, 30 lings, then a couple of Banelings, and gun down the 3rd base of Probe. If that works, obviously he's in a phenomenal spot. Then you're looking at a 3, if not 4 base Zerg against the 2 base Protoss. If it doesn't work, then suddenly Probe is going to have a good time just flying around with Void Rays, and he doesn't have to worry about Corruptors or Hydras for a very, very long time. And not even Queen should be that terrifying at that point, because normally, obviously, the Queen count could be a bit higher if they don't mine this much gas. So I actually think it's a bit risky. And did Probe get a confirmation that there is an evolution?
I don't think he saw the Evo chamber. Yeah, I don't think he made it back into the main base.
Yeah, that's a kind of a shame. Would have been lovely to just spam a random revelation into the back of the main base, see that Evo chamber, see that Baneling nest, because at this point you can already see the production tab. The lings are on the way, and what Probe obviously needs to do is just get as many Void Rays out as possible. An extra Oracle wouldn't hurt either, and then just get cannons and batteries, but he is doing that. I don't hate this on paper.
Yeah, getting them
second
up,
pylon,
set
please.
up over here. Yeah, second pylon will definitely help out if you can get that up in time. He's going to see the Queens kind of poking around further forward, but no reveal of the units itself just yet. +1 melee about to finish up. We see the lings flooding out. And so far, I think Probe is still in the dark.
Well, maybe he's thinking that this is just going to be traditional Queens and Lings, or it's going to be Queens and Roaches that are a little bit later. But he's technically doing the right thing. He's getting nothing but cannons and batteries, and that is the way to hold this. The Baneling count is going up quite high. It would be so lovely if Probe can just get a little heads up that this is coming. But if the overcharge is good, if the Void Rays are able to stay alive for a long time, losing Probes here is not an issue. You just don't want to lose the base.
Banelings are going to come running in and actually just bypass all of the probes, because exactly they're going after the shield batteries, they're going after the cannons. They managed to actually take out quite a few of them, and the lings finish off those cannons. Only a single pylon left over. Void Ray is going to be able to deal with a majority of the lings. I think 1 or 2 Banelings did explode on some of those probes, so a handful of them die, but there's just no shield batteries left over for these Void Rays to use against the Queens.
Nope, I don't know if we have any additional. Yeah, we have 1 battery and 1 cannon in the natural, but we really need to keep this Nexus alive against the opening that Dark was going for. I gotta say, Dark did a good job in not using all those Banelings on the probes, because the probes is not what he needed. He needed to take out the static defenses, because if he gets those, then he gets a Nexus, and he will get a couple of probes on top of it anyway. Well done by Dark. Really unfortunate for Probe that all of his defenses were centered near that ramp. Imagine if he just had 1 cannon a bit deeper into the mineral line, or a bit more towards the right side. The cannon would have been able to get a lot of shots off on the Banelings, would have forced Banelings to blow up the cannon. And I actually think he would have been able to keep that base alive.
Yeah, I'm with you, although I do also want to say, like, you know, the Banelings and Lings actually came in from the top right, so they actually walked through the mineral line and everything, so I think it was going to be tough almost no matter what at this point. But
yeah, but if you have a cannon there, it can soak up, or it can push out damage.
Yeah, that's true. It at least spreads out the units and everything, so... Well, at this point, this is going to be a very, very rough spot here for Probe, but he's got a lot of those Void Rays. He did keep all of them alive. He's making 2 at a time. And again, like, don't want to make this sound like Probe is still very much in a good position, or by any stretch of the imagination, but he has tools, and you know what? Comebacks are made off of, you know, the basis of having some tools available.
Say they are easy tools.
I would say there are harder tools in the game to use, Kev. Let's put it that way.
And we have a bunch of Void Rays with +1. We are going to get a robotics bay. I like the idea of maybe getting a couple of disruptors out. If Dark gets stubborn, no matter how far ahead he is, if you walk a couple of Hydras into a few Purification Novas and Probe is able to get that base up and running, obviously this is wishful thinking. At this point, this game is looking pretty disastrous for Probe. But if there is a way to come back, it's definitely off the back of a couple of great Purification Novas out of those Disruptors.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. We got 4 more shield batteries also being thrown down, just kind of really doubling down on the fact that if these Void Rays can stay alive versus whatever you throw at me, then maybe I can start taking some better fights, some better trades here and there. I mean, I don't really blame him for this, but I guess he did have to stall out at +1 air weapons just because, I mean, there's just not an economy to make anything else.
You mean a +2 or?
Or +2, yeah. That's
yeah, I don't
he
think
stalled out at +1.
I don't think we have a fleet beacon. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Fleet beacons are very pricey, cost a lot of gas. I think it's 300 gas.
200? Yeah.
There you go. He is going to drop it now as soon as that 5th and 6th gas are up and running, I guess. The most important thing is indeed get a couple of Disruptors out. Even though Dark already has an Infestation Pit, if Dark just chills right now, goes up to Hive, gets Vipers, and right when I say that, he fires up the Hive. It's almost impossible for Dark to lose this game. If he is stubborn, and sometimes people can be a little stubborn, especially if they feel like they're ultra far ahead, let's just get it over with, and they attack of a lair tech army into Disruptors, that really is a very solid way to throw.
A bit unfortunate. There's only one cannon. Finally does finish up, but that is a lot of Lings. Even with the shield battery overcharge, though, it looks like it is going to be enough to force those Lings back. Does pull all the Void Rays back, which were on a really nice cleanup creep job.
It's always
It's always available.
Even if there is a 180 supply of battle cruisers attacking an Archon, if there is a battery overcharge...
Look, Kev, I'm going to stop you there. I don't want you to get angry tweets from Hellraiser all weekend for this one, but... okay, Flux Veins coming on out, Kev. I'm going to paint you... Actually, I want to paint you a picture of, like, the Void Rays with Flux Veins, run in, snipe off a Hive or something, get some big damage on, but... It's so hard if there's creep, right? There's just too much creep. You'll never be able to sneak something by.
I mean, Probe has been with his back against the wall ever since he lost the 3rd base, but he doesn't want to tap out. And if that was a ladder game, he'd probably tap out. Be like, you know what, I'm too far behind. We're looking at the season finals over here. Probe has not won a game yet at the season finals. This is the 3rd time that he's here. He wants to do whatever he can. And like I said before, sometimes the Zergs can be a bit stubborn. This army obviously looks pretty terrifying from Dark. The Disruptor count is 3. Now, with a great stasis, and that is a decent stasis, and now a couple of great Purification Novas. The first one is alright, the second one is not very good. The third one is actually very good on the right side. I mean, is this good enough to hold? Maybe it is, even though we're losing all the Disruptors, and that's very painful. And on top of that, we've also lost 30 probes, yeah. Probe just doesn't quite have the firepower, unfortunately.
Yeah, and ironically now, Probe also does not have the probes needed to remake that firepower anymore. The Disruptor, unfortunately, not going to be able to do a whole lot about Lings running in and killing off the remainder of the economy here for Probe. The Void Rays are going to retreat on back, and yes, Probe is technically going to be able to stay alive over here, but it is going to be about just the reinforcing wave there from Dark. He's already close to max out, and majority of those Disruptors have been taken out now.
Yep. And I mean, the army of Probe is pure Void Rays. Well, we do have Hive, so we can always get a couple of Vipers. If I'm Dark at this point, I'll just start having some fun. I'll fire up 5 Vipers and 5 Infestors at the same time. And then I will have a great time dropping a couple of Parasitic Bombs and a couple of Fungal Growth.
You know, kudos to Probe that he has lost 45 workers in the past minute or so, but he's still at 49. You know, that's some solid Probe production, living up to the namesake.
I mean, I love that Dark is now building an Ultralisk Cavern. Okay, we do have 2 Vipers already. I just want to see 4 or 5 Vipers and then a couple of Infestors, because there is literally nothing that Probe has to deal with the Spellcasters of Zerg at this point.
Probe is going to tap out and try his luck in the lower bracket match.